This is Bryce Lensing of Without Circumstance.
And I'm just Joshua Be Easy. Fuck all the bullshit. And this is the
Takeoff Anytime podcast.
I see you standing there, always standing alone, and you could stand up for yourself. I know you can't control, you think the world should provide you with everything that you need. Because it's what you need now. It's always what you need now. It's always what you need now. Yeah.
As you can see, as you can hear, Jared's not here. He thought that family in Vermont was more important than being here for the podcast. So,
That motherfucker.
So screw him.
Shame.
Screw him.
Boo.
But that's okay because we have guests to make up for his absence. We have a local band Off the Ledge here with us.
What's up?
Add applause. Nice. But yeah, we figured we'd let you guys introduce yourselves, say your name, who you are in the band, and anything else you want to, really.
My name is Luke Dahlstrom. I'm the bass player of the band, and I'm from Lansing, Michigan.
My name is Eric Brandis. I am the guitar playing lead vocalist of the band, and I'm actually from Langsburg, a small little town.
That's in Michigan?
Yeah.
Oh.
Are you kidding?
About 20 minutes.
I didn't know you didn't know.
Langsburg?
Yeah. Actually, I
Not
know.
too many people have really heard of it, so it's all right.
Okay. It's out by Perry.
Yeah,
Oh.
if you've been to the state park.
Nah, never been there.
No.
I've never even been to Perry before. I don't went past it. There's no Meyer in Perry.
True.
It's great over there. Yeah, there's nothing there,
Yeah.
really.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lakes.
Thanks.
Right. Okay.
And I'm Jason. I'm the drummer in the band, and I'm from Owasso, Lansing area.
He totally looks like a drummer. Like, hair and everything.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Stereotyping Josh. Come on.
Yeah. He can tower over the kit nicely
Right.
and do his thing. I'm Tab. I'm the lead guitar player in the band, and I am born and raised in the Wacusta Eagle area. Current Lansing resident.
Wacusta
I
Eagle.
will admit, that's the only one that I did not know.
Wacusta or Eagle?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Is that by
So
Pleasant Eagle?
Grand
Eagle?
Ledge
Okay.
is west of Lansing, and then if you go north from there, you get Wacusta and Eagle basically on both sides. Towards Portland, if Eagle is closer
Yeah.
to Portland.
Okay, I know where
So
that
it's-
is.
Yeah, the area in between Portland and Grand Ledge.
I gotcha. Learn
Okay.
something new every day.
Yep.
Interesting.
So I have to ask, because you guys are, we're all in the mid-Michigan area, but it's a little bit spread out locally. So I have to ask, how do you guys get together as a band?
Twice a week for practicing. That's usually at my house in Langsburg.
Well, admittedly, I mean more of for formation. Was it like a Craigslist thing, or?
No, it's a great story because
It's a long story.
It is a very long story. So it started off where he was the original guitar player, and we had a former singer by the name of Matthew Shannon. They started the band in 2012. Stop me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they ended up they had a couple of other guys playing bass and drums, and they went by the wayside over time.
Yeah, I believe
Eric-
they were the third set of bass and drummers that we had.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Technically.
Eric and I got asked to fill in for a show in 2014 in November.
Yep.
And then shortly thereafter, he joined in like January.
Yeah, it was
and then
about
I
January.
didn't actually end up joining until March of 15. And then ever since then, the three of us with this gentleman, Matt, were in the band for the most part. And then we had a extreme parting of the ways with Matthew on artistic differences. And then Eric moved up from drummer to lead vocalist, much like Genesis, Phil Collins.
I've always been much more of a singer anyways. This is actually the first band I'd ever played drums for. I've been playing the drums since I was 16, but I'd always just done it for fun. So when I joined the band, it was kind of this cool new thing that it was the first time I was going to sit behind a drum set playing with a band, and it was really awesome. It was really fun for a couple of years there, but I'm a singer at heart though, so
There you go.
I got it.
So did you move up from drums to singer because your voice was better than the rest?
Yes.
Of course he's going to say yes to that.
Yes, but I would say like the stylistic place that we wanted to go was more rock oriented, and Matt was definitely somebody that was a huge fan of like Dave Matthews,
Blues Traveler.
and just
The issue wasn't the
good
talent.
music. I mean, it's,
no. The issue was never talent. He was a very talented person.
Oh yeah, and
great songwriter.
And we're gonna put some links in here too, but you can find them on YouTube, you can find them on Facebook, you can find them on the website. But they do have quite a few videos on YouTube, including their previous lead singer. And no, I agree. Definitely never a question of talent, but there was definitely a style difference. I always think of it being like a blues rock type mix.
Right.
Is how I described it to Josh before we started here. And now I've not said this to Luke yet, so I'm curious. And the reason Luke and I work together is you guys really remind me, whichever way you want to take this, of Our Lady Peace.
Oh, that is
wow.
the best.
That is
That's
the
a
band.
compliment.
That is the band. Every time that I've seen you guys, that's what you remind me of. Vocal style and music style. Actually, music style, you might be a little heavier.
I literally just listened to Naveed yesterday for the first time in a while, and Our Lady Peace is one of my favorite bands.
Oh yeah, I have their live CD. I'm not gonna lie. So.
Oh, I have that one
Same
also.
here.
It's a good one.
So.
Oh man, yeah.
So, like Bryce had said, how you guys kind of switched over styles from bluesy kind of rock to rock. What was the reason for like the style change? Was it just because of the lead change, or like did you guys just
I
wasn't
think it
feeling that?
boils down to Eric's vocals working
Right.
really well for like a 90s rock feel in that style.
I'm a bit grungier with my vocals.
And the new drummer, which
Yeah,
we never
yeah.
finished that story of him joining the band, but but that element, he's much more of like a Dave Grohl chops, kind of lots of little intricate fills and things that
Yeah.
he can do that bring up the ante a little bit as well. And aside from me being like a huge blues buff and stuff, I kind of have always liked grungy rock more than just about anything.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite bands are like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that for the most part, but like grunge is just kind of it's the era I grew up in, and it's like what I cut my teeth on when I was learning how to play guitar. And yeah.
Matt
It
always
just
kind of
makes
played on
sense.
like a clean tone with his guitar too, and it was pretty intricate where I'm just kind of doing chords and a lot of distortion behind everything to just thicken everything up. So that kind of helps it be a little heavier in that aspect.
It is more simplistic in ways.
Yeah. I think that's kind of better.
We
in
kind
some
of
ways,
we go
though,
for
too.
the less is more approach.
Right.
It's hard to have a lot of moving parts if things are really complex unless it's extremely orchestrated. And I think ultimately the reason that he wanted to do something else musically is because he wanted to write all of the parts and do his thing.
Yeah, I got
that
you.
is in his head, because he would hear a song a certain way when he would write it, and we would have songs where we wrote them as a band, and that was like a different, it always came off with a different vibe. And some of the newer stuff that we were writing just before he left was really starting to show this, like Luke's songs that he had written, the original parts for, ended up having a different feel than what we were doing previous to that.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just kind of, it stemmed there really from when Luke joined the band, I would say, as far as
Now, that's one thing.
moving in that direction of more of a rock feel, because he's such a tight bass player
Oh,
that
yeah.
it just makes sense.
Well, it's something you touch on there, and I mean, I actually don't know how much rock music you listen to. I know you listen to some.
I do
but-
listen to rock.
but-
I'm not good as band names and everything like you guys, so if I'm
Well-
looking lost.
Well, it's one of the things that's really interesting. If you follow a band that changes members throughout the years,
Yeah.
Even the guitarist and the bassist, and if you're at least vaguely musical, you can hear the differences in styles. One band that I always think of, POD. They had a guitarist, their guitarist changed, and then the original guitarist came back, and you can hear the differences from album to album.
Right.
And so it's just interesting when you say that about Luke coming in and you can hear a difference in style. That makes sense. So.
Okay. Yeah, the only band that I can think of that was different that I listened to was Creed, and then when the lead singer left to Alter Ridge, I think it was.
You actually got that right. I am so proud of you right now.
So I listened to it a little
I
bit.
am
Cue the applause
I
track.
am very proud of you.
Shout out to Mark Tremonti for
Hell,
making
yes.
it work. You know,
Yeah.
he's a good
Yes.
guitar player.
Mark Tremonti, I'm not gonna lie. It's ironic you said that. He's actually my favorite guitarist.
Yeah. Wow.
After
yeah.
you, of course. After you.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put him that high on my list, but he's good, and I loved Creed when they first came out, and
Oh, yeah.
I owned all the albums, and he's certainly a shredder, you know.
Well,
He's-
yeah, he did
he's
it, and he did some
very
solo
good.
stuff too.
Yeah,
Actually, so
he's talented for sure.
crap. There was something you said that made me think of something. So you mentioned you mentioned Led Zeppelin as being I cannot think of the word influence. That's the word.
Sure.
I actually did want to ask you guys about what your guys' individual influences were musically.
I have an extremely wide branch. Everything from Miles Davis to Radiohead to Our Lady Peace.
Is it all in that kind of rock subgenre?
Definitely rock subgenre, and some of the more recent stuff like Royal Blood, Death from Above 1979, where it's like bass and drums, and it's just like it's a different sound, but mainly rock, alternative rock.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mine's kind of all over the place, and it might shock you a little bit. One of my biggest influences that stems from when I was little is Michael Jackson. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
Rest in
Great
peace.
performer
Shout
and
out to Michael Jackson and
great
family.
singer. So from a very young age, I just loved music, and it's probably had to do with him a lot. So, but then also Led Zeppelin, huge influence on me, you know, guitar playing wise. I wish I could sing like Robert Plant, you know, or sing that high anyways. And then the other one that'll throw you off a bit is Korn. I was a huge Korn fan when I was in high school. The first 4 albums, though, I kind of stopped paying
I like
attention
Korn.
after those after the 4th one. But that also had a big influence on, like, musically where I kind of went after high school and the band that I was in, and kind of why I get that heavier, darker sound to my voice sometimes when I'm singing kind of comes from that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now I have to ask, from one less active vocalist to a more active vocalist, when you listen to music, do you generally listen more for lyrical content, vocal content, musical, or just kind of a mix?
Sometimes when I listen to a song, I'll listen to it a few times and kind of pick each individual part, you know, away so I can hear what's going on. You know, as a drummer, I love listening to the drums in a song to see what they're doing. Guitars and bass is kind of the same, but you know, vocals is also something that's very important to me, and I'm very picky about. You know, if I hear someone's vocals that I just don't care for the tone or something, I have a harder time getting into that band or liking their vocals through things like that. You know,
The reason I bring that up is because I will admit I'm maybe pickier, but for me, I will like a band or musician based more on their lyrics than their actual vocals.
Right.
Which is fun because there have been bands that it's like, man, their music is good, but their lyrics are.
yeah,
I would just stop listening to them for that reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the same way with
No,
all,
I
all
totally
genres of
understand.
music.
Yeah.
You know, if the lyrics is shit, then
Yeah, no,
you know,
it's
the
like-
Well,
song is
for people
stupid.
like us, but there are a lot of people that you know you can
Yeah.
literally say. Eminem had a song
Yeah.
called "Syllables" that was all about how people don't listen to lyrics.
right.
So
Yeah. You know, it baffles my mind that there are people out there that will listen to music and have no idea what the lyrics are in a song or not know what the song's
yeah.
about. Or, you know, it's just something that a lot of people sometimes don't pay attention to or listen to,
yeah.
you know. But, you know, they have their own preferences and what they like out of music and what they like to hear. And so that's the stuff they pick apart.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't mean to leave you out, Jason. Do you your influences?
I would say rock and roll, just from all the different decades. I think the first kind of music that I heard was the Beatles or 60s rock and
so
roll.
Yeah, you're going way back then. Okay. I
Just
gotcha.
historically, you know.
No, I think that's good because that gives you a broad spectrum of possibilities. I will admit I never got into that, but sometimes I wonder how it would have affected my style if I had.
What, listen to the older stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, because like my style was heavily influenced by like late '90s and up.
Right.
Yeah.
Same here.
That's where we.
But I mean, it can be a bit restrictive when you're. I'll admit it's a little bit restrictive. So
As a kid, I grew up listening to oldies on the radio, and that's what my parents listened to. And
oh yeah.
Some like Chicago and CCR. I think we had Chicago and CCR tapes in the car at some point, and you know, that was influential. CCR in particularly for me. But
So
you know,
can I ask real quick,
oldies.
just for someone who doesn't, not in depth in rocking, you guys, what is CCR?
Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Okay, yeah.
You still don't know?
No.
Fortunate Son. They had like
Bad Moon
throughout the
Rising,
60s and 70s. They had
Down on the
many
Corner.
hits.
Moon rising. I see troubles on the way.
Yeah, nothing.
I'm glad. See, this is how I felt the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I hope you know this.
It's okay. I like this,
But that definitely shaped my perception of music. And I remember where I was the first time I heard Pearl Jam. I heard Even Flow on the radio and immediately called the radio station and was like, what was that? And the DJ laughed at me and he was like, how old are you? And I don't remember how old I was, 12, 13, something like that. And this was when I was really starting to like, had just recently gotten a guitar and was playing around with things and, and whatever, and I heard Pearl Jam and was just like, wow.
Yeah.
I had
Opened
to
your
know who
eyes,
it
huh?
was right
Right.
away. Yeah. And discovering Led Zeppelin later on after that, and Jimi Hendrix. As soon as I started like getting serious about guitar, I started studying Hendrix. And then discovering Radiohead like changed everything after like. Not knowing classic rock, just knowing like oldies and stuff as a young kid, and then all of a sudden discovering like classic rock at the same time as 90s music, like grunge music, and then discovering like Radiohead after that. And I played in a punk rock band in high school and stuff, and I played in a metal band for a while after that.
Okay.
So
I'm all over the place.
I
But.
have to ask. I've heard you guys mention grunge a couple times. Is that the specific genre that you guys consider yourself, or do you guys consider yourself a different specific genre?
We're not from the 90s, so we aren't really a grunge band per se, and I think the grunge scene is like a thing that doesn't really exist anymore, but I think that our sound sounds more like 90s rock.
There's definitely
than
aspects
most.
that emulate that sound that came from that grunge era. So
Now, I will say my opinion. Once again, take it or leave it if you guys like it. There's pretty much 2 genres of rock that I listen to nowadays. One is post-hardcore, and the other is post-grunge. And for anybody who doesn't know, post-grunge is like Three Doors Down, Stain, Linkin Park, POD, stuff like that. And Our Lady Peace, ironically enough. And to me, that's really what I feel you guys fit into. But
Yeah, I think that's real
But the
close.
reason why I like you guys, and I can genuinely say that I like you guys, I've gone to their shows, I'm wearing their merchandise, I paid money for the merchandise, they didn't just give it to me. Is even though I think of you guys being a post-grunge style, especially vocally, you also put in intricate melodies with the guitar and with the bass. There's some songs that they have that the bass actually takes the melody, which I think is really unique. That kind of, I would even say, takes some of those melodic components of post-hardcore that I listen to. And I think that's why I can genuinely say you guys are a band that I like.
well, thank you.
Like, I mean, that's just my opinion genre-wise. So,
No,
but-
I never really thought of post-hardcore. I've never heard that described the way, you just described it, and that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
agree with the melodic thing, because for me, like when I played in this metal band, I played bass in a metal band, and
okay.
they were a pre-existing band that lost a bass player, so I just learned their songs and did them my way. But
Yeah.
I played them kind of more like a guitar player and was very melodic with my playing and things like that. And, I did some thumpy, fast stuff and some slap and pop and stuff like that. But mostly just really, melodic lines, because what they were doing was so rhythmic.
Yeah.
And I just felt like that was an empty space to fill. And that's kind of how I like to play guitar, too, is filling empty space with melody.
No, and I definitely agree. I mean, I think that's why I've been drawn more lately towards post-hardcore rather than post-grunge, because one thing that post-grunge, I think, fell into, and the reason why it's quickly lost its popularity, is there'd be a lot of rhythm, but there wouldn't be a lot of melody on guitar specifically, and I think that's where they kind of lost their traction. And now like the only post grunge bands that you really hear about anymore are like Seether and Shinedown, and that's like it.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Interesting.
How many of the bands that I just named do you know?
Absolutely none.
Okay.
Absolutely none. Just
But I
gotta
would
keep
ask,
it
do you know
honest.
the band The Roots? Do you know The Roots?
Yeah, I know the Roots.
Jason and I are actually big fans of The Roots.
Yeah, I am too.
Oh, there you go.
I guess to touch on what we think of us as genre wise, I would say the biggest goal that I had was that I always wanted it to be apparent like what our influences were that influenced our music, but I didn't want to sound directly like the influence.
Oh yeah.
Because you can sit there and pick apart any one of our songs and go like, oh, that's definitely like Peter Hook from Joy Division. That's like New Order. There's like a twinge of Chili Peppers kind of, but like never does it sound like verbatim like the influence. I just want us to be
You don't want to sound like
that,
a cover band or something.
Right.
but we're not just like
Well, and when we had Matt, we totally could have done like a Red Hot Chili Peppers ripoff kind
We
of a
could've.
thing that was really funky and upbeat, and him doing more of a hip hop type vocal like Anthony Kiedis would do. But that wasn't, we didn't want to just sound like the Chili Peppers. There's so
No.
many things to sound
Oh,
like.
yeah.
Chili Peppers is a great one of those things to sound like. But in our own ways we do, but we tend to be I don't know, less upbeat, I guess, than the Chili Peppers typically, other than maybe their newer albums.
true.
That's a hard comparison to make with the Chili Peppers anyways, because Chili Peppers, they're not like my favorite band or anything, but I respect them for having like a very unique sound. I feel like they have a unique sound.
Yeah,
at
they
least.
definitely
They
have a unique sound.
Because it's hard for me to compare like even just going with like famous bands, it's hard for me to compare another famous band to the Red Hot Chili Peppers just because of what I feel is their level of uniqueness. So, but no, I say that more in agreement with you because you are able to do that sound but not be exactly the same.
Right. Yeah, and John Frusciante's an influence of mine, and I play rhythm kind of like him, but not as good. So, but I've never had the rhythm role in this band. I've always been lead, so that's not
okay.
even a sound that we've really explored. But that would, it's something we could do.
Yeah.
But
So, can I ask about that? So,
Yeah.
how you say you never had to really worry about the rhythm side of it because you're lead. So, in a rock band, it's like you lead in like the second player behind you. They're more in charge of keeping the rhythmic aspect of the band. So like you guys kind of stay. You guys kind of do you kind of listen to the second chair in a way? I don't know if that's the right term for it. I'm sorry, but like to keep you guys like all in the same kind of pace of the song.
Yeah, and I would say like the dynamic, like when Matt was in the band, Matt is a phenomenal rhythm player.
Right.
He can hold, a song on his own just with his personal playing, because it's elaborate and and it has melodic and rhythmic content in and of its own. So then like playing with that, I have to play minimalistically to add without getting in the way or cluttering.
Right.
As where, the sound we have now where there's more open space with Eric's
Yeah.
lead or rhythm playing, where he's playing more simplistically, more empty space and pockets to fill. That allows me to do
I follow
more icing on the
Luke's
cake, as I
bass
call it.
lines a lot when I play rhythmically, like so the chord progression wise, and sometimes even I'll pick a chord apart in the same way that he's doing it on the bass, and that just kind of fills up the sound rhythmically more. But then there's still a lot of space for Tab to kind of just tear into some cool guitar stuff, and
Yeah,
kinda
and
what
there's
makes
good
it,
layers
so,
there
yeah.
between what him and I do. And something that we've been doing more of is like playing in sync together or harmonizing parts, to build that effect. But that's something I've always liked that I've seen other bands do is, twin guitar solos
Right.
or whatever, I mean, that's just cool and it sounds great,
So do a lot of bands do this? Like how you're the lead singer and you're the lead guitar. Like does the lead if the lead singer plays guitar as he sings, you're typically the lead. You're typically not the lead for both.
Yeah, so
Usually the singer is the rhythm player.
Right, because
Most of the time.
it's far easier focusing a lot more on the singing aspect if all I'm doing is playing on chords
Right.
and stuff, that I don't have to look at the guitar, and I just know where everything's at, and and then I can put a lot more focus into the actual vocals, and that's my strong suit is my singing. What I do on the guitar is really not that difficult.
Yeah.
But
He's a good
and I mean,
guitar
that was the
player,
same
though.
for me when Without Circumstance was actually a 3 and at one point a 4-piece band. Is I always said, and I still do, I play guitar out of necessity, but I like singing more. But no, I mean, even for us, I mean, and I think this is the first time it's ever come out on the podcast. Josh and I actually met because of middle school and high school band, and I mean, you know how it is. Everybody kind of keeps each other in check.
Right. But high school orchestra type band is different from a regular rock band because there's no singers. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, there's first chair, second chair, and we all have our specific roles when it comes to filling in the music. But I think it's completely different when you add in a vocalist to it, because the vocals is always the kind of majority of the time the focal point of the song. So
I gotcha.
Which is another reason why we kind of like the less is more approach to playing at times. Because it allows each of us to have our moments to shine,
Right.
to where the whole thing is interesting and full throughout in different ways.
And I do feel like that comes off when you guys play live, by the way, because
Thank you.
there are times where you guys play live where I never feel like you guys are competing with each other, which unfortunately there are some bands that it does feel that way. But there's times where the guitar is shining, there's times where the bass is shining, there's times when the drummer is shining, times when the vocalist is shining. And I think that that's really awesome, because a lot of bands, I do think, just focus on the lead singer and that's it.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, it's easy to fall into that, but
Right.
still it's nice when you don't.
Yeah.
So can I ask?
No.
So do you guys go to a lot of either competitions or have a lot of shows around outside of Lansing, just all around Michigan?
Yeah, we play all over.
Yeah.
Now how is the rock music scene in Michigan?
It's not like it was in the 60s or 70s.
Right.
or the 90s for that matter.
Yeah.
The early
Yeah,
90s.
the 90s, yeah.
No,
It's tough. It's really tough to try and both find an audience and have people be compelled to come out to see you.
Yeah.
Because you're competing with Netflix, you're competing with economic issues, you're competing
Well, and that's the
with...
difference. The creation of the internet is, I think, when the music scene first began to really suffer.
Because you didn't have to go out for your entertainment anymore.
Yes.
Right.
No.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That-
I was
internet
in a
just-
band
yeah.
before the internet was
Yep.
around dial-up days, when you
Right.
had AOL
Yep.
and all that. We made flyers and we put them up places and we played a show and 200 of our friends were there every time,
Right.
And granted, we were in high school and that's a different,
Yeah.
a different
So-
thing. People have expendable incomes and unlimited time, which
So you're saying with the music industry becoming somewhat more industrialized or more stream internet type, it's harder to kind of get your music out?
Yes, because it's become a giant oversaturation to where you're a
Yeah.
needle in a haystack no matter where you are in the scheme of
Yeah.
the music industry, and big labels are, I mean, that's like the people that are famous that on the radio. That's 1% of the existing gigging musicians that are actually doing music for a living.
And a lot of those bands, those big bands that are out there, have been famous since the days of when music was really, before the internet days.
So they have a built-in fan base where they may not
Right.
have the sales, the physical sales, they're gone. You can be a number one artist on the Billboard charts with a 50,000 level record sale, but actually sitting there, they have that built-in fan base to try and that they can sit there and actually piggyback off of, that they're always going to have.
Right.
Well, and that's the crazy thing, and this is actually one of the huge topics I want to bring up that Josh brought up. But to your point, Luke, bands that were selling out huge venues now that are still together. One that I think of was a few years ago, Trapped, was playing at the Loft. And I've played at the Loft. You guys have played at the Loft. Loft's not that big of a place compared to big bands.
Right.
And you think about how big of a band I considered Trapped to be. you know, in the
It's drunk.
mid 2000s. Yeah,
Yep.
It's weird to see bands like that playing that small of venues
Yeah.
to me. And one of the questions that I wanted to go over with you guys, because I'll admit I have a strong opinion on this, and I welcome your guys' opinion if it's strong too, is do you guys feel like rock music as we knew it is dying out?
That's a good question.
I would say, as we knew it, yes, because it just doesn't carry the same weight that it did at the time. There's other competing factors and other styles.
Gibson Guitars is going bankrupt right now.
Right.
Wow.
That
I
should
didn't
tell
know that.
it all
I did
right
not know
there.
that.
DJs.
They make bank. And
Right.
The
they
music
sell.
industry has shifted from selling guitars to selling DJ gear.
Yeah. It's
Right.
all electronic music now.
Yeah, MIDI and
yeah, I mean,
synthesizers
that's-
and stuff like
Yep.
that.
And that started happening around the same time that the internet started happening.
Right.
And it boomed after Napster and, you know,
Right.
the whole industry changing there.
Yep.
Where like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have to go buy a bunch of vinyls in order to go play music somewhere for people, you know. You
yeah.
can actually like just plug your phone in something and $10
Your
a month
computer,
you can
your
have
whatever,
any
but it's
song
like-
on Spotify. you
Right.
know?
Right now, as we're talking, Lollapalooza is going on right now, or it was going on yesterday and Friday with their live feed on Facebook. All I saw was DJs.
Oh, really?
Nothing but DJs. Like, I would just see one dude and like this amazing production and a DJ. The only other thing I think I saw was The Weeknd was playing, and he
Right.
had somewhat of a band, but it was just mostly that was it. That's all I saw. I didn't see rock bands at all.
Yeah, because like when with MIDIs and stuff, like I can sit here on my computer and I can do everything that you
Well,
guys are doing. Kinda. I mean,
And
of course
yeah.
you guys have more
That's the
knowledge, but
Yeah.
you know, if a person with basic knowledge of how music's supposed to sound and different notes and things like that, you know, I can put together, you know what I'm saying, a rock song just off of, you know, my ear,
Right.
without
Well,
really
yeah.
knowing how to play
And
anything.
that's the thing too, is even the bands that were the big ones that aren't, you know, withering away. I hate saying that because that sounds like I'm insulting them, but I'm not. But two bands come to mind: 30 Seconds to Mars and Linkin Park. Rest in peace, Chester.
Chester, yeah.
But they went from being like, you know, what you would think of with the rock band, you know, bass, electric, drums, vocalist. And now you listen to the stuff that, you know, 30 Seconds to Mars is putting out now and Linkin Park was putting out prior to Chester's passing. And it definitely got away from, you know, the heavy distorted guitar, and it got more towards the electronic
Yeah.
stuff.
They totally kind of morphed with the scene.
Yeah.
You know, to stay relevant.
Which it's like,
you
I
could
can't
say,
blame
and-
them for doing what they have
Right.
to survive, but
Yeah.
it doesn't, as a fan, feel as true.
Right. Because you've got like fans that remember them from their early days.
Yeah.
You know, and we're all sitting back like, what are they doing now? You know, because we still like rock and roll. You know.
Yeah.
We don't really want to listen to them doing this kind of stuff, but they're still just as famous, if not even more, because they're just capturing new people out there that are into that kind of music. And
then they still have the old
know.
people coming to their shows to listen to the old
because
songs
you know they're
too.
still gonna play some of the stuff.
Well, that's
you
the
know.
funny thing is like my wife's favorite band is Paramore. And every time they come to any Detroit, we go and see them. But they definitely, every band, they progressively got less and less heavy rock and more pop.
Yep.
And it's so crazy because you have 15-year-old girls that know their old music, and I'm like, what? And it's because they were introduced to their old music by their new music.
Right.
So it's one of those
Yep.
things where it's like, I might not, it's not ideal to me, but I understand it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that can go for any band. Like I discovered Muse when they put out Absolution in like 2006.
Mm-hmm.
I
When
think that was like 2002.
it was just after high school or something for me.
Like
So
two-
right
it
around
was
03,
early
04.
2000s,
It might have been
definitely.
04.
Yeah.
And fell in love with the album. You know, it just changed everything. And then like going back and rediscovering all their older stuff that was like heavier and just like I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And then, I've never listened to a ton of like heavy music. Like, I mean, as a guitar player, I got into like Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, and shreddy stuff like that. And I played in a metal band, so I'm not estranged to it. But like that experience, hearing them that way, and then hearing that opposed to their newer stuff, where they're like, it's
Are you
hard
talking
to
dro-
put
are you talking
about
drones?
Muse. Yeah, well, drones. like the album before that, maybe even like some of the really poppy stuff and like Madness and things like that are like still just masterpieces, but totally different from that. You know, old first 3 albums. You know, I fell in love with the whole career pretty much. You know.
Oh yeah.
But it's the same, you know, the same concept as what you're talking about.
Man, that's the thing. Is like I always have to be careful I don't fall under trap because there's so many bands that I can think of that with like crap. I just thought of one that just left my brain too. But Panic at the Disco. So that's another one that my wife really likes. And you know their second CD, they went way off the rails from what they did. So much so to where actually their band split into 2 different bands. So and I mean,
what was the other band?
I do not remember. They did not get very famous, but it was the guitarist and the bassist, the lead singer Brendan Urie, and then the drummer stayed. Panic at the Disco, and the other 2 went off. And it was like their second CD. The only famous song that people know from that is 9 in the Afternoon, and that was very, I would say, folky. I would say like a folk rock.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was kind of interesting when how
folky.
you guys were just talking about how rock is becoming more pop-like, you know, and saying that the rock kind of style is kind of dying off.
It
you know?
has to survive, I think.
Yeah, you know, and that plays a lot to like R&B. I don't know if you guys listen to a lot of R&B, but to me, R&B is kind of dying, or you know, almost dead. And I think it's because a lot of R&B singers are becoming more pop. It's like R&B is pop. It's merging into pop.
Right.
You know,
Well,
and I guess that's the same
country
with
scene right now.
I was just gonna say that actually. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Country scene's totally gone hip hop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's like
Yeah, when you have Jason Aldean rapping,
yeah.
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Hip hop,
But it's all
is
pop
like,
though. That's the thing. That's pop.
the funny thing
You're
is-
talking about pop. The rock stuff we're talking about.
I think-
is pop. It's all.
Yeah.
I think a lot of
at
that
least
though,
mainstream wise.
Right.
with country, I think of specifically American Idol because of Carrie Underwood. I feel like she was a huge catalyst, and not just single-handedly, but I think she is a kind of a poster child for country
makes
going
sense,
pop.
yeah.
yeah, true.
And it's because you know
And Taylor Swift.
you had all
yeah.
these
Yeah.
you had a lot of country artists doing American Idol, and of course American Idol was a mainstream show, so you know I feel like once even the people who didn't win would still get record deals and they'd go and make these country pop albums.
Oh yeah.
Now, kind of a little bit of a deeper question. Do you guys feel like the kind of disintegration of pop or the lines between other genres of music is more fusing into like a big pop grand ball kind of because of political correctness and everything? Because like it kind of seems like nowadays with a lot of things, they're trying to get rid of the lines that separate everything,
Yeah.
really, you know,
Right.
outside of music. So it just becomes one big, huge kind of clusterfuck, you know? Like, do you think the dying off of these separate branches of music is because of a political turn that the new generation is coming to?
I think it's out of like just necessity of the way the music industry works, because if you want to make it as a musician, you pretty much have to plan on doing it yourself and being independent and being part of the indie scene and doing, you know, not that pop produced thing.
Right.
There's kind of 2 paths, and some people can properly bridge the gap between those, and I think that's why a lot of those bands have success. You know, a hard rock band with a really good singer that can sound polished in the studio and have that what's the band the Pop Evil. I just heard one of their songs the other day and was like, wow, this guy has a really strong vocal and it sounds really great and it really fits the rock thing, but that's what makes it pop, is that vocal, that quality, I think, in a lot of cases, or the polished, you know, feel.
Yeah.
I would say, to answer your question, though, there has to be, much like he said, it's out of necessity. So I think, there's stylistic borrowing going on because you have to try and bridge as many gaps as you can. To going back into my original statement of trying to like gain people's attention, because it is so difficult to get people motivated to want to go out, to invest in your music, to listen to your music on any, you know, medium. So you're gonna have to borrow. And
Well,
inevitably, at some point, stuff has to blur to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think blurring is so much more common now today, though, than it was years ago. Because think of like when recorded music first became available. That wasn't that long ago in history,
Right.
you know. Or you think like Buddy Holly. He was kind of like, he was like rock and roll. You know, he was like,
Right.
like the young ladies knew that they were gonna go dance, and you know,
And the parents were not happy about it.
Yeah, and that was, and if we listen to Buddy Holly today, you know, any
Yeah.
kid who listens to that is just gonna be like, what is this old timey weird stuff?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so there's so much more out there now than ever, and our personal influences as being like kids that grew up in the 90s is already extremely way more diverse than it would have been had we have all been kids in the 60s. And I think that's a huge factor in how everything's playing out with the music industry as
You know,
well.
I think a lot of that too. And first off, I agree with you guys. But I like how you brought up, you know, the older style of music. You know, what we consider to be, you know, when we're gonna go dance, and then in, you know, the '90s you had, you know, girls in thongs on music videos and stuff like that.
Right.
Good old days.
And, well, but it's one of those things where I feel like artists are, you know, to get famous, a lot of people think that, you know, what you have to do is you have to push the envelope.
Right.
And I once had one of my wife's family members make the comment, and like I couldn't even disagree with it, that it's like there really hasn't been like a memorable, like a musician or musical group that has had like a huge stamp on the history of music since Nirvana. And that's early 90s. Since that, I mean, I guess there's a case to be made for the
Linkin
Chili
Park?
Peppers, ironically enough.
You don't think Linkin Park?
In the grand scheme of things, like if we're talking about like 50 years from now, bands that people will still remember. And I agree with
I think
my
it'll
wife's
be
family
remembered
member.
for different ways, though. It's
Yeah.
not like they're Bob Dylan where they're writing about like current events that matter to people, or you know, things like that, or Rage Against the Machine and speaking out about political things, and or like you said, pushing the envelope. Like Kiss has already done it, and then Marilyn Manson took it to the next level, and
Yeah.
then there's War, and then now that's like nobody can try and push the envelope any further, you know, other than some of these extreme cases, which are some
Yeah.
of the things that you see highlighted in the, you know, pop industry. There's isolated cases where you see some really unique, bizarre things.
But I would agree with that. It's just like, what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do? Because it's like,
What
yeah,
hasn't been done?
Right.
Right.
It's all been done.
It's all been done.
Right.
And then like, yes, and to go like since like the early 90s, like I just don't think the labels don't have the financial means to push a band to
yeah.
get them to
Right.
that influential
Because album sales
place.
doesn't make them money anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
No,
like, so
album
then-
sales isn't even a thing anymore.
So you don't
Yeah.
have any kind of music clout. The industry's dead. We have to do everything ourselves, but we don't have the resource and capital to try and like get to the level that you need to be nationally known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in this kind of like snake chasing its own tail, where it's like you wish there was a label, but there isn't a label. But you need to do something to get more attention, but nobody can get people's attentions to make them want to pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which all boils down to like internet.
Which is why you
Yeah.
guys are a great source with
Right.
the internet. You know,
Yeah.
I personally think the internet ruined everything, but it also creates an opportunity to do things like this, where you're
Yeah.
on a podcast or you
Right.
do like a televised event. You know, we did the PBS thing. You know, and like that's like a large scale thing. But you know, the internet. You know, you never know what video or podcast is gonna just blow up all
Yeah.
of a sudden.
And- and-
there's
and
that
Hopefully, that's
avenue.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. We're trying to take off
Yeah.
anytime. But no, I think the word there, and that was actually the other really big thing I wanted to hit on is oversaturation.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to have a podcast. Everybody wants to be in a band.
Yes.
Yep.
And one of the things that I really wanted to ask you guys about, and if any Lansing artists listen to this, they might hate me for saying this, is I feel like Lansing specifically is extremely oversaturated with heavy metal, screamo, speed metal, anything that is up and above, anything that has unclean vocals, essentially.
Yeah.
Lansing's a
To the
decent
point
sized city.
where I'll be honest.
know?
When Luke first asked me about coming to one of your guys' show, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be another heavy metal band asking me to go to their show. I've only had this happen 20-something times.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then me and him were talking. And he's telling me about the band, and he says 90s, and I'm like 90s, and I'm thinking like Matchbox 20 and like Fastball.
No,
I'm sitting here like,
sir.
well, I like Matchbox 20, just never enough to buy one of their CDs. Right. but I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll go, and then I come, and I see more of what I actually listen to, and I'm like, wow, this is the first band I've had somebody actually ask me to come see. This is actually something I listen to. In fact, I'll even go as far as say I only played at the Loft one time. It was one of their $1 local shows. And there was only us and one other band on the entire card, and it was probably 10 bands that had a clean vocals. Everything else was screamo, heavy metal, stuff like that.
You know, that it's kind of interesting what you just said, how Lansing is oversaturated with, you know, screamo type people with distorted or bad vocals. And that's kind of like how the rap game is right now in hip hop, because with the blow up of mumble rap, you know,
I know of it.
Yeah, you know, just basically there's a lot of people coming into the music scene, and they're not focused on lyricism and, you know, putting out their message through their words. You know what I'm saying? They're just all about the beat, or like, you know, the different aspects of it besides the lyricism of music. Right. So, you know, that's just kind of interesting that it's the same thing for rock as it is for hip hop.
Well,
you know,
granted, in my opinion.
Well, yeah,
I'm not sure what these guys think of what I just said.
No, that's
I'm
true.
not a fan of mumble rap, but I like the fact that like that music can be explored by anyone on some level, whether you're a DJ or a rapper or a guitar player or a drummer. You know, you're still participating in creating music in your own way. But yeah, mumble rap makes it accessible for people who don't have vocal talent to be vocalists.
right, and
That's the way I look at it.
for me, it's kind of hard to call a mumble rap artist like to be a rapper. You know, like mumble rap to me like kind of needs their own separate lane. You know, because it's just not the same. You know what I'm saying? I feel like.
But it is a rhythm thing that's interesting.
It's a rhythm thing, and it's definitely piggybacking off of like the hip hop stylistic of music. But to really say that a mumble artist is a rap artist, and the same thing is kind of like degrading. You know, it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't fuck with that. You know what I'm saying? That's just,
yeah, and like you could say the same about like punk rock or something as a guitar player. Like, you know, anybody can learn to play power chords and play in a punk rock band. And like, you know, what was it? The Clash that didn't even know how to play like when they first got famous, and then like they slowly kind of learned how to actually play guitar over time. But like that wasn't the point. The point was that people wanted
an experience,
anarchy,
they
or
wanted
whatever.
an experience, and they wanted some kind of visual experience.
Yeah.
The how didn't matter. It was just about how did you connect. But to go back to the question, oversaturation. Lansing is actually, as he said, a very decent sized town. It's not small,
right.
but it feels incredibly small, and it's like you don't know who to play with.
I think there's an oversaturation in just about every genre, really, and not nearly enough venues or desire to go see live music to support all of it. And I think pay to play situations and venues relying on bands bringing all of their friends and family out every time they play a show has killed, you know, the scene as well.
I mean, East Lansing, I don't even know where you could possibly play, even if you wanted to.
Yeah, and there
Other
isn't
than on
anywhere to
campus
play.
somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, other than like on campus, like literally.
Yeah.
I don't. They used to have the Small Planet.
Even then,
they had-
it'd be a cover band gig, you know.
Yeah.
It'd be,
Well,
it wouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly what you said. That was one of the things I was going to bring up a little bit later. Because, I mean, Lansing, you have Max Bar in the Loft.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about original
The
music
Avenue.
here,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of places you can play if you want to do covers. And unfortunately, that's a trap that I fell into because I didn't have people to play with other than my band. And these venues want you to play 2 to 4 hours at a time.
Yep.
And it's like, that's 4 albums worth of material. I have 1 album. So you fall into this trap of, okay, well, I guess I'm going to play 30 covered songs.
Yeah.
But then, you know, one of the things that I always hated, I never wanted to happen, I never wanted to be known as a cover band.
Right.
And
we literally just had this conversation in our band practice.
Literally, because and this
days
also
ago.
goes back to like the question of saturation how do you make it in the music industry? What are you doing? Well, financially, we have to go out and play cover band shows.
Yeah.
That's how we pay to record.
That's
and
It's
the
like, how do
things
you
that we
press
gotta
albums?
do.
How do you pay to record? How do you pay for equipment? Original gigs are not. gonna pay that,
right.
ever.
The original gigs that I've done, I don't think I've made any money on.
Yeah, I mean,
Most of the money that I've made, I'll be honest, is playing cover songs at farmers markets.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the most of the money I've made.
the cover band thing is one of the that's both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like we love it because
Yeah.
T-shirts get bought,
Yeah.
stuff gets recorded.
Oh, and we
People
get to,
know the
I
song.
like
I get to
doing
play
it.
guitar
It's
for
fun,
4 straight
yeah.
hours in front of
You
people.
get to
like,
see a bunch
that's
of people
great,
dancing and singing
Yeah.
along with you,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a cool experience. It is exhausting doing it for 4
Yeah,
hours.
it's
It's a
Yeah.
lot of work.
And
You
it's
know,
like,
it's-
but at the end of the day, we would much rather be out there playing our originals only
right.
Yeah.
and
No,
getting paid
agreed.
decent.
Now, I think playing some covers can open people up to your music. So if you play like some covers that people really like, you know, and then you hit them with one of your original songs, they're going to be way more open-minded to
Yeah.
take in that original song. And, you know,
I
they'll
think we've
be
been able to
listening
use
to it a
that
lot
to our
more.
advantage
You know,
a lot over
Yeah,
the years.
so-
Oh, yeah. And I mean, and that's what I did too. Is I would generally play. We would arrange our set list to where we were doing 3 or 4 cover songs, then an original, 3 or 4 covers, then an original,
Yep.
to try and get it. Oh, people know these songs. Let's
Yep.
throw something they don't know.
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Now, one question that I had since you guys are here that Bryce had brought up the other week with our previous guest, Bryce had said that in rock there's not a lot of collaboration between rock bands, and I want to take you guys' perspective of that. Why is that? Why don't like bands accept other people from other bands, whether it's lead singers or
Are you talking
right.
locally or nationally?
which is the whole thing? You know what I'm saying? Like I've never even heard
Because I
heard
feel
of.
more
I
so
think some
locally.
of that happens, but
Not on the scale of like a rap artist,
Yeah.
where like
Yeah.
they'll have featuring
Yeah.
blah 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 blah
Oh,
blah blah.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
but in the
here's-
pop industry, you definitely are seeing that a lot right now. Like it's
Right.
always Justin Bieber featuring Major Lazer, or so and so featuring
Right.
so and so, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
It's almost never. I mean, even like Florida Georgia Line, a country band featuring BB Rexha or whatever.
Backstreet Boys, they toured with Backstreet Boys.
Right.
Florida Georgia Line.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I would say it's more competition, perhaps, maybe at least on the local level, because we're all struggling trying to get
Right.
by.
I think that's like the modern day equivalent of when bands did split albums in the 90s. So because like you got 2 bands that put out a 5-song EP and a CD can hold 12, 18 songs or whatever.
Yeah.
So they would put 2 albums together, front and back. You got each album cover on one side, and they both sell them at shows. So now every time that band sells an album, you just sold an album.
But I would say that's gone away. I think
Yeah,
that's
because
something that
albums
doesn't-
don't exist.
I will
Yeah,
admit, I did
yeah.
not know that was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Competition too. I just don't think there's like the kind of adventurous spirit that there was in the early '90s, where you could see a touring thing like Lollapalooza, where they'd have Ministry, NWA, Jane's Addiction, Body Count, all these different, or not NWA, I'm sorry, but there's definitely genre differences, and it wasn't
Yeah.
just this one stylistic, this is a metal festival, this is an EDM
Right.
dance music festival, it was this traveling circus of all these different music types, and there's I think a lack of adventurous spirit to want to do that, which
So,
kind of
I think the music has to also be improvisational to really be able to do that to a degree, because otherwise, we could have a guest artist come play for our album, but then how do we recreate that live? Or
unless
it
they're
makes it a
traveling
lot
around
harder
with
for a
us
rock
or-
band.
Would you guys kind of think it's more so I don't know this is as well as you guys may, but when you look at a rock band, people look at you guys as a whole instead of individually, and individually you may have as big of a following as you would together. Okay. So say you went to another band, you know what I'm saying? And they say Tab, somebody went to work with some other band. They may not know who you are by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Or look at somebody famous, say Slash. He's a big guitarist. If he went to plays with you guys, you know what I'm saying, that would be pretty big because people would know who just he is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying, because of people don't follow just you, they follow the band. So if you went somewhere, they don't know who the fuck you are.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Oh yeah, no, that's
Yep.
definitely part
And
of
that
it. too.
happens
Yeah.
sometimes, and you don't even realize it. Like what the Eagles of death metal and some of the other little super groups that exist out there. It's like, oh, these are all like people from bands that I know, and I didn't even know that these people were in another band
Right.
together. You know?
right.
Yeah.
I will admit you hit on a note that I didn't think about, because I mean, if you know, let's say this can make no sense, but let's say, you know, Nickelback did a song featuring Mark Tremonti. Most people would be like, who the fuck is Mark Tremonti?
Yeah.
Because they don't know him as Mark Tremonti, they know him as the guitarist of Creed.
Right.
Obviously, people like us know who Mark Tremonti is,
Yeah.
but
Right.
you're a
Right.
layperson. I guess I never thought about that. Good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I think like the collaboration thing, I think with like hip hop, that's easier to do because there's more space, and it's more of a rhythm and bass, and you know, with the electronics and things, and there's more collaborative things that work well together
Right.
than inviting another person into this very well balanced 4-piece scenario that we have going on.
Right.
And I think that's probably the biggest reason.
Yeah.
And probably in rock, when you do see those kind of things, it's usually a guest vocalist, and especially like a male-female type of
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
situation or something like that.
Yeah.
Because those are just what kind of naturally works.
Right.
If it were a blues band or a funk band, you know, especially if it was like a funk band, you know, there's already 13 people on the stage. It's not going to hurt to bring up one or two other guys from some other band that either is playing later that night or is in town or whatever on a gig, or it's friends of theirs or whatever. And it works in those situations because stylistically it's supposed to be very busy and people are doubling what each other are doing, and it's just more overall tone and sound being added as opposed to like adding a new part into a pre-existing song that, you know,
Right.
or a pre-existing lineup of people that, you know, have figured out how to play with each other, because that's something we're still, you know, learning is how to write together and how to play together.
Right. And I can imagine that takes a long time to do.
It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it just kind of naturally happens, and I feel that way with us a lot. But we're still discovering like our sound and who we sound like and what we are, and we haven't even released an album post lineup change, you know, to show the world what we are, other than like some live videos that we have out there. So
Yeah.
it's a long journey.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Did Jared send you any of his questions?
Nah.
Nothing?
Can
Okay.
we do final thoughts?
Yeah, we can do that. Any?
Final plugs? Website?
Definitely come check us out
website.
on Facebook. offtheledgemusic.com is our website, so you can also check us out there. It's got show announcements, updates, and news and touring info if you want to come see us.
Yes.
Next, not this coming week, but the week after, we have 3 shows. One in Mulligan's in Grand Rapids, the Black River Tavern in South Haven, and then
That's Saturday.
and then
So-
Cognito Bar. I think it's
in
also
Bangor
in
on
Bangor.
Friday. Yeah.
West Side people, those are all for you.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
West Side.
You guys be traveling. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll be putting links on YouTube, Facebook, so you guys can go to their page, like them, subscribe to them, like us, subscribe to us.
Yep.
Please.
Just in case anybody haven't noticed, we are on all sharing platforms: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeart Network. You know, we on it all now. You know, so you have no fucking excuse not to listen to us, not to share us.
Yes, and
Okay.
like our page also.
And then we
Yes.
lose subscribers.
While we're on
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Check out Off the Ledge, please.
We didn't want them anyways.
Do you guys have anything you guys wanted to throw in there?
No, we talked about so much fun stuff that I could go on about forever.
Definitely come check us out. We want to see people and come see us.
Yes.
So we'd love to.
It's the only way we make it happen.
Right.
We need
these
you, the
days,
fans. This
so-
isn't going to happen with just us.
And also, we're going to be having some links to some Takeoff special features of some songs that they're going to perform for us. So click on those, watch those, share. You know the routine by now.
Yep. Once again, this is another episode. We want to thank everybody for listening and fucking with us. And if you don't fuck with us, oh well, we're still gonna take off. I'm Joshua B. Easy, and this is Takeoff Anytime Podcast.